My name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I am a member of Unity of Charleston. Now, today, what we're going to do is have an episode of Meet the Staff. Very excited to have our newly appointed senior minister, Scotty Putnam, or Sarah Scott Putnam. I think we all call you Scotty. Welcome, Scotty.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah,
It's Sarah Scott Putnam. My nickname is Scotty. I go by both, and so that's perfectly fine. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for what you're doing for us. This is beautiful.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I hope that people will watch these videos so that they can get to know more about our members. And if anyone is considering joining, then I hope these videos will be available so that you can see what we're about. So you have just taken the new role of senior minister, and I wonder if you'll tell us, how did that come about?
Well, I'll tell you, probably about 3 years ago, it was 2019. I was living in the mountains. I've had a little place here and a little place in the mountains, and I love the mountains. But I would come back every, I guess, 2 weeks and would work with clients Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and I'd head back up to the mountains. And I was in meditation one day and I really listened to what comes in and I heard, "You're going to be moving." And I thought, no way, I'm not going to do it. But what happened was shortly after I heard it again. And I thought, okay, then make it easy. And I'm always talking, I always have this conversation going on with my beautiful, I call them my spiritual board of trustees. Within 24 hours, I had a phone call from a dear friend and a client who just in her conversation dropped in that Unity of Charleston was looking for an assistant to the minister. And all my, as you know, all my truth bumps, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to head back to Charleston then. And it happened that quickly. And what they were actually looking for was an assistant minister. And so I did that for 2.5 years. And Unity was my home before I moved to the mountains. So I was in the mountains for about 3 years. And so it was just a homecoming. What we didn't anticipate was the pandemic and me, they had already hired me in January of 2020. And then for me to step in during the pandemic was quite the experience. And so that's how we got the ball rolling with that. So I was already part of the staff. I was already one of the ministers. And then Ed, who has been here for 20 years, decided that he wanted to cut back on what he was doing. And the board hired me, asked me if I would consider stepping in. And I said, yes, 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 yes. Here I am.
Here you are. Well, I know that you like nature a lot because you're always doing videos from nature and talking about nature, and it seems like you're always going to the mountains. Do you still have a place in the mountains? Is
I
that
do. Well, I have, my family does. And so I do get to go there, but I believe nature is so important. It's where I reset. And I believe to me, it's what was there before words were even spoken. And so it is my healing ground. It really is. So it doesn't matter where I am in this world, you're going to probably see some pictures or me popping in on a video for those that can't get out to see what I'm seeing. But yeah, nature is important.
Yeah, I like it that nature was here before anything was even spoken. It was the
Yes.
voice of the silence then that was speaking.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, where were you born originally?
So I'm from a little tiny town in South Carolina. I was there for many years. I did go off for college. And then I moved to Charleston probably about, I guess, 30 years ago. And so, but yeah, little tiny town in the South.
Okay, and so where do you live now in the Charleston area?
I live in Mount Pleasant.
Oh,
So, yeah, I live in Mount Pleasant and I have a cute little cottage that is behind my dear friend's house. And so that happened beautiful also. And they had just finished that. Everything was just synced up when I moved back here. So, but yeah, I'm in Mount Pleasant.
well, we have a lot of members that live in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, we do. We sure
Yeah,
do.
and all over really. Uh,
All over.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
a lot of members from Somerville where I live as well.
Mhm.
So what initially when you came to Charleston, what brought you here?
A job change, and my husband at the time, and myself, and it was such a good opportunity. At first, we're like, "Oh, we're going to the big city," but it just ended up being home, and so it was for jobs. And I'm an interior designer by trade, so I was working for a company, that does design work, and he was working for the who was he working for? Um, DHEC, yeah, and so that brought us here.
And were your children born here?
I have one daughter, and she was actually born in my hometown. And she is so amazing. And she now lives in Florida with her beautiful husband and my two precious granddaughters. And so, yeah,
And how old are your grandchildren?
they are 3.5 and I guess about 9 months, 8 months.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
little wee ones.
Little wee ones, they're so precious.
Yeah. And so you had a career before you went into the ministry, and or do you still do any of that work?
I do. I'll do it for family and friends, and yeah, I love it. But yeah, I went to school for interior design, and I worked for a beautiful company out of New York for a while, and doing design. I love it. It's that creative part of me. So yes, I will still do that for family and friends when I have the time.
Well, tell us when your spiritual search started.
My spiritual search started when I was little, and I grew up with a Episcopal mom, or a mom who went into. She got her master's in divinity and became an Episcopal priest, and then I had a granddad who was a Southern Baptist minister, and so I had religion from A to Z. And I just always felt a calling. Like I always knew that there was something bigger. Like I don't know. I was tapped in very early, and of course I didn't know it then. But looking back, that intuitive part of that divine nature of who we are, I was just tapped into it. So truthfully, when I was little, I remember visiting my grandparents, and we were called up for an altar call, in Baptist church, and I remember thinking, what my cousin, who was a little bit older, was crying, and she was going up there because she thought we had to, and I thought, I'm not going up there. So even with that experience, I thought that makes no sense. I couldn't think of a thing that I had done wrong. That I was being told that I had done wrong, and so anyway, that still is in my memory, and it put me on an exploration on all the different religions, all the different spiritual modalities, all the sacred texts, and I love it all. I really, really do. So when I was a
Oh,
wee one,
what?
when I was a wee one,
Yes. Well, uh, looks like you landed up in the right place
mm,
because Unity does certainly embrace all religions, all types of
yes.
spirituality, and it asks us to question, and it also asks us to receive answers. So, how did you find Unity?
Oh gosh, years ago, I've got to remember. And you sent me on that question, and I thought, wow. I had friends, Kathleen and Cindy, that told me about Unity, and they said you're going to love it. And I've always gone to different churches, and I've always been able to plug in, be it Episcopal or even the Jewish temples, and I just love the sacred words. And as long as I can tap into my understanding of that divine spirit. And so my good friends told me about it. And yeah, so that's how I landed here. And I was a participant of Unity Charleston for years and years and years before I moved to the mountains. So again, this was definitely a homecoming.
Ah, I love it, a
Yeah.
homecoming.
Yeah.
Well, with all this experience and moving from since you were a wee one, what philosophy have you arrived at? What is it? How do you live your values out? Tell us.
Oh gosh. For me, I love, I know some people don't like the word God. For me, I love all the faces and all of the expressions of divine energy spirit. I am so in love with the great mystery. I love the idea of original blessing versus original sin, which is Matthew Fox's philosophy around that. And so I follow him quite a bit. And Richard Rohr, I follow his work. So if you're familiar with him, but there's just a sense of, for me, it's an expression, it's an energy, it's a there's so many different ways to arrive to the one, or what we call the I am, or the one. And so I've done a little bit of it all, in this exploration. I don't know if that helps. And asking my philosophy, it for me truly is just live life fully, and to wake up each day expecting to have a beautiful day, expecting miracles, even in the crap that we go through. What are those gratitudes, and how do we meet with another person and understand that they are a reflection of us? They're a part of this one source energy, the wholeness of who we are. So.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of creativity and curiosity
I do.
that has led to a tremendous amount of open-mindedness.
Absolutely. And I think that curiosity and living in the question is really, really important. And I'm learning for me, it's not so much about the answers. It's great when they come, but it's more about staying in the curiosity, staying in it, and from a place of discernment versus judgment, meaning that if you see something that you don't agree with, it's okay to just say, I don't, I know that that's their experience, and I can honor them in that, but it doesn't feel right for me in my walk. And so, and instead of saying, oh, they're wrong with the way they're praying, or the way they're doing it, or the way they think. And so I think it's really important. Yeah.
So it's more than just tolerance toward another person. It's really embracing them regardless of the differences you might have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it would be such a boring world if we were all alike. And
There are a lot of people that don't agree. They want everybody to be like them.
exactly.
And
I
and
agree.
too often I'm the same way. It's like, how could they be like that?
I know. I know. I catch myself. I can do that very quickly too.
It is easy. Well, you've actually mentioned a couple of people that do write, that are authors, but do you have any favorite books and or authors that you might mention?
I do. If you could see my little play. Well, first of all, these, you can see the books behind me, but these, I was so happy. This actually came with, these are a part of the Unity Library. But at my house, you'll see that I have stacks and stacks and stacks of poetry. I'm a poet also. And so, and I have anything spiritual and anything, just a little bit of everything. But my favorite book is Cahill Gibran's The Prophet. And that book, are you familiar with that one? Okay, so it's parables of how we live life. It's an easy read, but when I read that years and years and years ago, it struck a chord so deep inside of me, and I just, whew. And for those that may not know, he is he's from Lebanon, or he was from Lebanon. He's just a mystic poet, brilliant, brilliant. So that's probably my number one. 7,000 Ways to Listen, Mark Nepo.
No.
And that book is just, if you could see my book, it is dog-eared and highlighted. I've used it for teachings. And the premise with that is, or the foundation of him writing that book, he's one of my favorite poets also, but is that he was having lunch with a linguist, and he asked him, he said, how many spoken languages are there in the world? And he said over 7,000 spoken languages. And those are just the ones that we know about. And so Mark said that as he was sitting there listening, he said, then there must be over 7,000 ways to listen. And I do think that's the number one thing within spirituality and intuition, like listening for the answers, or listening to our beautiful brothers and sisters instead of trying to figure out what we're going to say, but listening. So that's that's up there on top of the list too.
I will say that during the few times that you have read poetry at church, it has been astounding. I mean, I think everyone that you've read, and I'm not always the tip-top appreciator of poetry. I will write some here and there, but sometimes it seems a little bit abstract to me, and I don't quite, it's like an abstract painting. I feel like I didn't get it. But every time you read one, it is so spot on. I mean, it just targets my heart. You have a great ability to match the poem with the topic that you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do think for me, I didn't realize the poetry part, and evidently I wrote some when I was younger. But I was writing a book, and within that, it would come out in these little paragraphs, and it would take me deeper in. So when I'd do my writing from a place of deep contemplation and heart, and kind of go with it. And I realized that it was poetry. I realized what was coming out, and it's almost always when I'm in nature that it comes out. So how interesting is that? So when I'm away from everything else and immersed in that experience is when it comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, I can almost feel that nature vibe as you speak. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, do you have any passions or hobbies?
I do, and I want to talk about one more book that I'm so
Oh,
passionate
okay.
about. It's part of the passion though, and it's Women Who Run with Wolves. Do you know this one? And
I
it's
never read it.
so
I had it and didn't read it.
I think it's something that every woman should read because it just talks about who we are as women and how we have such a creativity and a fire in us that can be shut down and out in the real world. So it talks about not being tame, following your passions, following what you love to do, follow it if it's poetry, if it's writing, if it's dancing, if it's singing, whatever that is, to really follow it and do it from a place of I'm going to say wildness, like without having to worry about. I'm not saying don't follow the rules of society, but what is your true nature? Not don't perform for everyone, but who are you as a woman? So it is brilliant, 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 brilliant. Highly recommend it.
Wild abandon. Live with
Wild
wild
abandon. That's it.
abandon. Yes.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to figure that one out. So
Yeah, we probably all still figuring it out because whether we're actually men or women, we may have that
yes,
call to this and we're all excited and then we walk into somewhat of an oppressive culture and I'm just trying to be negative. I'm just saying that we're
yeah.
we're pigeonholed into different roles and and it's easy to just fit right back into that.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And it is, you made a great point. It's men and women for sure. And so yeah,
Yeah,
I
men
agree.
are success objects and women are sex objects or beauty objects,
Exactly.
and
And
it's
how can we be all of it?
yeah, it's definitely very limiting. That's one thing I like about women's liberation was really about liberating everyone, not just liberating women.
I think that's very important. Yeah, concept. It's about loving the men, not hating the men. It's about everybody coming together. Yeah.
Right. It's like we're in this mess together. We need to do
Exactly.
something together to get out of it. And so moving back to your interest and passions,
Hmm.
these
Well, I'm a clarinetist, so I love that. I also love poetry. I love to design. I love hiking. I love nature. I most recently I'm in a relationship with a beautiful, beautiful man, and so we do a lot of like disc golf, and which has been fun to take up and to do. So I've got a lot of different passions. I love to dance. I love live music, live bands. So yeah.
say a lot of stuff going on. Well, do you have any particular spiritual practices? I think we know one, which must be going out into nature. And in addition to that, or if you want to
Yeah.
elaborate on that, but
Well, I think that the number one thing that I work with whenever I'm working with someone is what is your daily spiritual practice? I think that's the most important thing. It's like brushing our teeth and combing our hair. I think it has to be done every single day, and it can be different. But for me, when I get up in the morning, I do a thank you, thank you, thank you before my feet ever hit the floor. I do a prayer that says, "Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom?" So I set myself in service immediately, just knowing that this wild world, we, we never know what's going to come in. And then I'm in meditation. I'll light my candles, and no matter where I am, I'm going to be in meditation for the very least 5 minutes, but usually it's a lot longer than that, probably up to an hour. And then I do the same thing at night. During the day, I try to be very intentional about who I meet and the eye contact and just being very present. I try to get out in nature every day. That doesn't always happen. So, but yeah, I do a lot of prayer. I do a lot of writing. I listen. I truly believe we're so connected in, and all the answers are within us. We don't have to seek outside of us to get those. And so there's a sense of trusting what comes in. And then of course that last part is the acting part. You know, how do you put that into play and act on it? So those are some of my spiritual practices.
Well, I can confirm that you are present because every time you talk to me after church or maybe before church and you speak with me, you're always very, very present. But
Well, you are also, and I love your beautiful energy, and I love that you're here. And so thank you for that.
well, it was a surprise. I did not expect a Unity church to be like this. I mean, everything has its flavor, but I didn't expect, and they're all wonderful, but I didn't know that the Unity church would be my flavor, if you know what
Yes,
I mean, because
I do.
it's so open-minded and non-doctoral and doctrinal. I mean, and it's an amazing place to be. And I encourage anyone that may be watching this that's considering coming to Unity, please come. And so, Scotty, are there any words of advice or any last thoughts that you'd like to leave us with today?
You know, the only thing that I would say is, be it Unity or wherever, stay connected. I think the moment that we become disconnected and think that we're not a part of the whole is when most of the problems come in. And so being connected in community, and reaching out, it's so important. And it takes us, sometimes we're like, well, we don't want to bother another person that we're down or we need something. But the truth is that gives somebody else an opportunity to be of service for you. And so I say that, stay connected to your spiritual communities in particular. I do think that's part of what's missing in the world today, is that knowing that we're connected to the one source. As we say here at Unity, it's the God of your understanding. So
I'm going to throw out a question that may I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but this
okay.
question is: some people have the belief, and we
Mm-hmm.
have these personal lies and beliefs about ourselves, that I don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think a person should tackle that particular belief, and what could they do to overcome that thought?
That's such a great question. Usually, the person that feels like they don't belong, and I think we all go through that to some degree until you get a little bit older and you go through all the trials and tribulations. But I think when you can write down and say, what are my gifts? Take a piece of paper and write it down. What are those things, and what are you passionate about? If it's singing, dancing, what are those things that your spirit's calling you forth? And I had a teacher ask me once, she said, what is your spirit love? And I thought, what are you talking about? This is years ago. And I'm like, what is she talking? I didn't know what she meant. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute. My spirit loves to be out in nature. My spirit loves hot, spicy Thai food. My spirit loves to travel. My spirit loves to meet new, like-minded people. My spirit loves poetry. And so there's this energy of, regardless what other people are doing, what do you like first? And then to connect with those people. If it's poetry, find a poetry writing club, or go find an open mic. It's hard when you feel like you don't belong, but getting true with yourself first, I think, is most important. Like loving yourself first, and then finding that community. And a community like Unity, oh my goodness, that's where it's at, because you're going to meet people. It doesn't matter if it's here, another spiritual center, or church, whatever that is for you. That's what I would recommend.
So find out what you like, what you
Find
love,
out, find
and
out what you love. What is your spirit love? And you'll know it. You'll know it. What opens all your senses up. And then plug into that, plug into whatever that, because that's where you're going to find your like-minded people that are going to go, oh, I get you. I see you. I love you. Come join me. So that's
that
my recommendation.
that is a great advice. Well, I want to thank you so much, Scotty, for being with us this morning, and look forward to seeing you in church on Sunday and every Sunday, and hope other people will join us. Thank you.
And thank you for you and your big, beautiful spirit, and for doing this.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much.